The Cornwall Regional Hospital continues to be a controversial point, and sometimes I think a distraction from all the good that we're doing. I don't have an issue with people raising concerns, because I do agree that this is a project that has taken a very long time, and this is not something that we desire. Indeed, it's something that we regret. But every time we hear a conversation around Cornwall, unfortunately, it lacks context, and it is designed, unfortunately, by some, not all, because some people are genuinely trying to understand, to create a perception which is not the case. And I try to address that in the Parliament by recognizing that we really are impatient to see the completion of the project. But frankly speaking, this is the government that has tried to do it the right way. I don't know that anybody else has. And when the history would have been written, maybe not now, and the context is placed on the table, you recognize that Cornwall Regional had an air quality issue probably a decade before it collapsed, and nobody did anything about it. They went in, they pull out this and the other little band-aid here. The base of the hospital was compromised to the point where, God forbid, a catastrophe could have taken place. We had to reinforce that. We had to take out the boiler system in the middle of the building. We had to deal with all the steel work that was protruding at various levels of the floors and so on. So what we have done is an entire stripping down of the hospital, the building, literally to nothing. Taking out all the pipes, the electrical, the roof has to be changed, and I could go on and on. Covered areas that were not covered, so we created greater levels of square footage space. And we are now in the stages of essentially building a new hospital. And I'm not going to not say it any other way, because that's what we're doing. The only remaining thing that will be there when we open Cornwall Regional is the 10 floors. This 10-story concrete structure will be the only consistent physical part of the building. And indeed, it has undergone substantial transformation, because we had to go floor by floor to reinforce. Now, I want to clear up a couple of misperceptions, again, because repetition is good. Firstly, to date, we have spent 3.5 billion, as said on the screen. This year, we're projected to spend 5.81. And that's because this year, and it has started, we're now putting in the internals of the building. All the designs are complete, so we have, this is how the operating theaters are going to look. We have 5 brand new operating theaters that are going in there, 5, right? This is how the waiting area will look, A&E will look, the wards will look, all of those designs. And we had to do new designs, because the new designs, because there was a shell, there was nothing. It's just the building, and the entire floor was empty. And the team, led by the project manager and the Office of the PS and others, and the contractor, and all the associated stakeholders are busy, including the technical medical staff at Cornwall, have now signed off, and we are now getting to that point where you will see floor by floor being reopened. This cannot be considered a cost overrun. And by any definition, those who want to know just need to check the dictionary probably, or ask an expert what overrun mean from rescoping. Because when it was a ventilation system, there was a cost related to a ventilation system. When it became taking out the broiler, reinforcing the base, taking out every window and every door, dismantling every whole operating theater, removing all the debris, taking out parts of the building that they say had asbestos or something, right? One section. It had to be rescoped. Rescoped. Cannot be considered a cost overrun, right? And hence the new cost associated. Now, we could have decided, the government, that tell you what, just put in the new ventilation system, and when it breaks down again, next time, mold or whatever, we just have to move out people or inconvenience people. We decided not to do it. I believe, and I'm, self-praise is no recommendation. It's not up to me alone. It's the cabinet. We were bold in taking a decision that we were going to solve the problem once and for all. And it took guts to do that. But it also took a lot of work, because what we did, having taken that decision based on the recommendations of the experts, we had to create a hospital around the hospital, which is the other misconception about the 21 billion and its expenditure. First of all, we haven't spent 21 yet. It's a projection, okay? Secondly, it involved a plan. It was a parallel plan. One was to strip the main building down, to restore it as a modern building. Every single thing in that building will be new when it's finished. Every equipment, every diagnostic, every tool, everything. And the second, which was more important at the time, was what do we do with the 450 people who were in beds in the hospital when the thing was collapsing? What do you do with the 500 patients each day who came in as outpatients to see a doctor because they had a massive outpatient service? What do you do with the dozens of people who have heart attacks, gunshot wounds, car accident, who came to accident and emergency every single day, 24/7? A hospital is an essential service for those who don't know. And I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 12 months of the year service. You can't just stop it and wait until you build a new one. If it worked like that, then we probably would have had a renovated Cornwall 2 years after. But let's face it, we had to kind of go along, build out a structure around the structure, which meant bringing in Noel Homes in Hanover, Falmouth Hospital in Trelawney, building out 2 additional operating theaters, for example, in Trelawney, renovating buildings, shutting down the Mount Salem Clinic, which is on the compound, converting it into an A&E, doubling the capacity, building a new diagnostic center, taking out all the nurses, some of them had to be relocated, converting the nurses' quarters into inpatient wards. So we had to go in there, and you don't just take out the nurse them and put patient in the ward. You have to put in plugs, to put in ventilators and piping and for oxygen, dialysis, creating a new dialysis center. It really is a case study on how to manage a crisis. And I am of the view, contrary to many people, that it is nothing short of heroic what the team has done, those on the ground at Cornwall, to maintain a service while dismantling a main building. And it costs money. So some of the 21 billion, the 3.5, not the 21, the 3.5 that was spent on Noel Homes, Falmouth, and building out all of these services around the hospital. And it was done because it had to be done. Otherwise, we'd have to put 450 people on the road. And clearly, that's not practical, and that certainly would not be an option for the government of the day. So when we speak about Cornwall in this kind of disparaging way, it is an insult, I believe, to the people who have been involved in the process, the doctors and the nurses. It is an attempt at discrediting the government. The government is not, well, let me not say the government. I am not devoid of criticisms, because there are some things we could have done differently. If in 2020 vision, we went through several project managers. We started with the UDC, then we moved to UNOPS, we went overseas, because we never had any experience in hospital build-out. So we went to the United Nations hospital system. They changed about 3 project managers during the time because it wasn't working. Then we had COVID, so literally the project stopped for 2 years or more because nobody was going on a building during that period of time. Then we had to wait and build out parts to move people in. So we had to keep people in the building that was limping and then move them out as we built out. It is a classic case of case management and around crisis, but it's also an example of what a position not to get into and why maintenance of our infrastructure is important, which is why every new infrastructure we're building now, we are including in that a maintenance schedule or a service level agreement that is going to require routine maintenance. So we never get back to the Cornwall regional debacle. But it is unfair to say that the team has not done their best under the circumstances. And I think it's unrealistic for those who make claims around expenditure to misunderstand, misinterpret, or create mischief that somehow the 21 billion, which is yet to be spent, is because of cost overruns. It is rescoping, and rightfully so. I see the minister waiting on me to sit down, so I'm passionate about this one. And you notice I've looked at the script, right? I kind of know it by heart now. So where are we going with Cornwall? This year, we're going to see significant work on the internals, both that and Western Child. And the intention is to phase the reopening, which hopefully will mean occupation or reoccupation of the building over time. And yes, it will go into next year, but we're going to do it right. In the meantime, there is no Jamaican or foreigner for that matter who goes to Cornwall Regional for a service who does not get that service because once it's offered there. Emergency or otherwise. So we should make a distinction between the service provision and the main building. We haven't deprived anybody. People may have to wait, but we're not depriving anybody. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask the people of Western Jamaica and others who may be anxious to recognize that I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, of any project in Jamaica and maybe in the Caribbean where you have an active hospital compound that sees thousands of people every week and 2 active construction sites on the same compound. We have a massive construction site for Cornwall. We have a massive construction site for Western Child and Adolescent. Workmen, cranes, trucks, things going in and going out, and we're pushing people in trolleys and on stretchers and carrying them from one space to the next. And we haven't really suffered any major fallout in terms of infection issues and so on. I'm telling you, the people on the ground should be seen as heroes as opposed to villains. And I'm not saying me. You can make me be the villain. I don't have a problem with that. I know what I have to do, and we're pressing ahead. But the people there, you know, the community should be treating them in a special way because they put up with all of that. Noise pollution, dust pollution, all of those risks, and they have had to manage that. And I salute them, and I will continue to do so now and in the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that may be it. There wasn't any other slide, eh? No.